Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
My name's David, and I've got quite the story to share. I'm 31 and have been married to my wonderful wife, Priya, for 4 years. She's 29, Indian, and honestly, she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Life was pretty sweet. We had a cozy little house in a quiet neighborhood. I work in construction, and Priya teaches at the local elementary school. On weekdays, we'd both come home tired but content. Priya loves cooking and would whip up something delicious for dinner, saying it helps her unwind. As for me, I'd usually tinker with my truck in the garage or catch a game on TV. Weekends were our special time. We'd sleep in, enjoy a leisurely breakfast, and maybe tackle some yard work together. Priya has a green thumb and loves planting new flowers and vegetables while I mow the lawn and fix things around the house. It was simple, but it made us happy. Then one day, new neighbors moved in next door, Sam and Samantha. They introduced themselves as. They were an older couple, probably in their 40s. At first, I didn't think much of it. New neighbors are just part of life. But little did I know, I was in for quite the surprise. From the very first time we met Sam and Samantha, I felt something was off. Samantha was loud and bossy, with poor Sam barely getting a word in. She would constantly call out, "Sam, get the boxes." Or "Sam, did you remember to call the cable company?" And Sam? He'd just nod and do whatever she said. I couldn't help but think, sheesh, glad that's not me. But then there was Priya. She seemed fascinated by Samantha and started chatting with her more and more. At first, I didn't think much of it. Priya's always been sweet and traditional, like many Indian women. She believes in taking care of her man, you know? Then one day, Priya decided to share her perspective. "Hi there. I'm Priya, Alan's wife. I guess I should tell you my side of things, huh?" When Samantha first moved in next door, I was curious. She was so different from anyone I had ever met. Growing up in India and then moving here when I was 7, I always tried to be the good girl, respectful, quiet, doing what was expected. But Samantha? Wow, she was like a force of nature. The first time we really talked, she invited me over for coffee. Her house was a mess, with boxes everywhere and stuff piled on tables. But Samantha didn't seem to care about the mess. She just laughed and said, "Who has time to unpack when there's life to live?" We sat in her cluttered kitchen, sipping coffee and chatting. Samantha shared stories about her job as a marketing executive, detailing how she fought her way up the corporate ladder. "Never let anyone tell you what you can't do," she emphasized, "especially not a man." I remember feeling a mix of excitement and fear, maybe both. It was as if Samantha was opening a door to a world I never knew existed. As we spent more time together, she would say things that made me think deeply. She talked about how marriage should be a partnership, not a hierarchy, and how women shouldn't be expected to handle all the housework simply because they're women. At first, I would nod and smile, but then I began to wonder, was she right? Was I letting David take advantage of me? I love cooking and taking care of our home, but should I be doing more? Should I be more? I started trying to adopt some of Samantha's mindset, speaking up more and asking David to pitch in around the house. It felt strange, but I was curious about this new perspective. It was uncomfortable, but also kind of thrilling, you know? But then I'd glance at Sam, Samantha's husband, and he always seemed so sad and defeated. Was that what happened when women took charge? I didn't want that for David. I love him so much, and the thought of making him unhappy really hurt. I was so confused. Part of me wanted to be strong and independent like Samantha, but another part missed the easy comfort David and I had always shared. I didn't know what to do. Should I go back to being the old Priya? Or should I keep trying to embrace this new identity? It felt like I was being pulled in 2 different directions at once. And then, well, things started to get really messy at home. Like, really weird. At first, it was just small things, you know? Priya started making comments that didn't sound like her at all. One day, I was chilling on the couch after work, and she casually said, "You know, Samantha says men should do their fair share of housework." I laughed it off, but looking back, that should have been my first clue. Then things escalated. Priya began leaving dishes in the sink, claiming she was too tired to clean up. This was from the woman who used to freak out if there was even a speck of dust on the counter. I get that she was tired, but this felt different. It was as if she was trying to prove a point or something. One Saturday, while I was in the garage working on my truck, Priya came out with this serious look on her face, like she was gearing up for a fight. "David," she said, "I think we need to talk about dividing up the chores more evenly." I nearly dropped my wrench. Divide the chores? Since when was that an issue? I tried to reason with her. "Babe," I said, "you know I work long hours at the construction site. I'm beat when I get home." But she wasn't having it. She went on about how her job as a teacher was just as demanding and how she needed her time, too. Where was all this coming from? It wasn't just about housework either. Priya started questioning every decision I made. If I wanted to grab a beer with the guys after work, she'd give me the third degree. Why do you need to go out? Don't you want to spend time with me? It felt like I couldn't do anything right anymore. Our conversations started feeling like minefields. I'd say something innocent and boom, she'd blow up. One time, I complimented her on a new dress, telling her she looked sexy. You'd think I'd insulted her grandmother or something. She went off about how I should appreciate her for her mind, not her body. Since when was a compliment from her husband a bad thing? The worst part was that I could see Samantha's influence all over this. Priya started using terms like patriarchy and gender roles. That wasn't my wife talking. That was Samantha using Priya like some kind of puppet. I tried to talk to Priya about it, but she'd just get defensive. Samantha's opening my eyes, she'd say. Maybe you should try listening to her too. Yeah, right. Like I wanted to end up a beaten-down shell of a man like Sam. Things finally came to a head one night after a particularly nasty argument, probably about something stupid, like leaving the toilet seat up. I was so frustrated that I decided to sleep on the couch. But when I went to grab a pillow from our bedroom, the door was locked. I stood there, staring at that closed door, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. In all our years together, Priya had never locked me out. Never. I knocked, trying to keep my voice calm. Priya, open the door. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Priya, come on. This is ridiculous. Still nothing. That's when I lost it. I don't know what came over me, but before I knew it, I kicked that door right off its hinges. It crashed to the floor with a sound like a gunshot. Priya was sitting on the bed, her eyes wide with shock. For a moment, we just stared at each other, and then I let her have it. What the hell is wrong with you? I yelled. Locking me out of my own bedroom? In my own house? The house I pay for? Priya tried to say something, but I was on a roll. I've had it with this crap, Priya. I'm sick of walking on eggshells in my own home. I'm sick of you treating me like I'm the enemy. I'm your husband, for Christ's sake. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Look, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this isn't you. This isn't us. And I'm not going to stand for it anymore. You want to act like Samantha? Fine. But don't expect me to stick around and be your punching bag like Sam. With that, I grabbed my pillow and stormed out, leaving Priya sitting there in stunned silence. As I lay on the couch that night, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Was this really the end of our marriage? And if it was, how the hell had we gotten here? Oh gosh, where do I even start? That night, when David kicked down the door, I'd never been so scared in my life. Not of David, he'd never hurt me, but of what I'd done to our marriage. After he left the room, I just sat there on the bed, shaking. What was I doing? This wasn't me. I'd never locked David out before, never even thought about it. But lately, it felt like I wasn't in control of my own actions. I couldn't sleep that night, just lay there replaying everything in my head. Part of me wanted to run after him, to apologize, to fix things. But another part, the part that had been listening to Samantha, was furious. How dare he break down the door? This was my room too, right? The next few days were really strange. David and I had always talked about everything, but now it felt like I was living with a stranger. We'd pass each other in the hallway, and it was just nothing. No good morning. No how was your day? Nothing. But I couldn't bring myself to apologize, not yet. There was this stubborn part of me that thought I should stand my ground. So when David stormed out of the room, I didn't follow. Instead, I gave him the silent treatment. It felt childish, but I didn't know what else to do. For the next few days, our house felt like a war zone. We barely spoke, barely looked at each other. I slept in the guest room and made my own meals. I told myself I was being strong and independent. But every night, I cried myself to sleep, missing the warmth of David's arms around me. I was so confused. Part of me wants to run to David and beg for forgiveness, but another part, the part influenced by Samantha, keeps telling me to hold out, to not give in. It's tearing me apart inside. What happened to the happy couple we used to be? How did we end up here? As the days pass, I start to realize how much damage I've done, but I'm too proud and too scared to make the first move. So I wait, hoping David will break the silence, praying it's not too late to fix what I've broken. Enough is enough. After days of this cold war with Priya, I can't take it anymore. This isn't us. This isn't the marriage I signed up for. It's time to put an end to this nonsense. I find Priya in the kitchen, doing dishes. She's been avoiding me like the plague, but not anymore. I plant myself in the doorway, making sure she can't slip away. Priya, I say, keeping my voice level. This ends now. You're sleeping in our bed tonight. I'm not living with a roommate. I want my wife back. I see her stiffen, but she doesn't argue. Good. That's a start. That night, we sleep in the same bed for the first time in days. We don't touch or talk, but at least we're in the same room. The next morning, I decide it's time for a real talk. I sit Priya down at the kitchen table. No more beating around the bush. Look, I say, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this isn't working. I married you because I wanted a partner, not someone who's constantly trying to prove something. That's not the Priya I fell in love with. I can see the tears welling up in her eyes, but I press on. This needs to be said. I love you, Priya, but if you can't be my wife, if you can't respect me and our marriage, then maybe we need to rethink things. That does it. The dam breaks, and Priya starts sobbing. Between hiccups, she tells me everything about Samantha's influence, how confused she's been, and how she let a stranger almost ruin the best thing in her life. I'm so sorry, she cries. I don't want to be that person. I want us back. I pull her into my arms, feeling a lump in my throat. We stay like that for a long time, just holding each other. When I finally find my voice, it comes out gruff with emotion. We can fix this, I tell her. But things need to change. No more of this feminist crap. No more letting other people tell you how our marriage should be. It's just us, Priya. You and me. You need to remember one thing. You are a teacher, and kids look up to you. They learn from you. If you poison their minds, imagine the consequences. She nods against my chest, and I feel like I can breathe again for the first time in weeks. We spend the rest of the day talking, really talking, about what we both want and how we'd let things get so messed up. It's not easy. We've both said and done things that hurt, but we're committed to making it work. Priya promises to cut ties with Samantha, cold turkey. No explanations, no goodbyes. I'm relieved. That woman was poison to our marriage. It takes time, but slowly, things start getting back to normal. Better than normal, actually. We appreciate each other more now. We know what we almost lost, and we're not taking it for granted again. I've got my Priya back, my sweet, loving wife. And I'm never letting anyone come between us again. That's a promise. It's been a few months since our big blowout, and man, what a ride it's been. Priya and I are stronger than ever now, but getting here wasn't easy. After our big talk, we had to rebuild, and trust doesn't come back overnight. We put in the effort every day to truly listen to each other and be present. Priya stuck to her promise of cutting Samantha out of her life, which was tough at first since she had grown used to having that friendship nearby. But we both recognized it was necessary. That woman was like a weed in our marriage that needed to be pulled out by the roots. Looking back, I realize how easily things could have spiraled out of control. If I hadn't stood my ground, or if Priya hadn't acknowledged her mistakes, we might not be here today, happy and together. We were fortunate to catch ourselves before falling off the cliff. Not everyone gets that chance. So, we're grateful and determined not to waste it. Nowadays, our home is filled with love and laughter again. Priya is back to cooking up a storm and singing in the kitchen like she used to. I'm feeling like the king of my castle again. At night, when we're curled up together on the couch or in bed, I count my lucky stars that we made it through. Because this is what marriage is truly about, a partnership, a team. And Priya and I, we're the best team there is. Now for the second story. My name is Ethan, and here is my story. It had been almost 3 years since Emma and I started dating, and a few months ago, we took the big step of moving in together. I still remember my college graduation day 6 years ago, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves about what lay ahead. Little did I know that hard work and a bit of luck would lead me to where I am now. 2 promotions in 3 years and a salary that sometimes makes me do a double take when I check my bank statement. Buying this place was a dream come true. I had always wanted a space to call my own, somewhere I could build a life. So, when Emma and I decided she would move in, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. She graduated 2 years ago and has been working hard to establish herself in her career. Her salary of $30,000 is a solid start, especially given how tough the job market can be for recent graduates. Before Emma moved in, we sat down for an open conversation about our finances. Given the difference in our incomes and the fact that this is my place, we agreed that I would cover the mortgage, utilities, and other household expenses. Emma would handle her personal expenses, things like spa treatments, clothes, her Netflix account, phone bill, and Spotify subscription. It's a setup that works well for us. I'm proud of what I've accomplished in my career, and I'm glad I can provide this living situation for us. Emma is making strides in her own career, and I'm excited to see where she goes from here. We're building our life together, step by step, and it feels great to be on this journey with her. Our financial arrangement might not work for everyone, but it suits us just fine. We discussed it thoroughly, set our boundaries, and we're committed to sticking to them. It's reassuring to know we can have these kinds of conversations openly and honestly. As we continue to grow together, I look forward to what the future holds for us. Now from Emma's side. Living with Ethan these past few months has been an eye-opener. At first, I felt like I'd hit the jackpot. No rent, no bills, just my paycheck to spend however I wanted. But now, I'm starting to see things differently. I've watched my friends move forward in their relationships, joint accounts, shared expenses, building a future together, while I still feel like a guest in Ethan's world. Sure, he makes good money, but isn't sharing a part of partnership? Last night, I decided it was time to change things up. We were in the kitchen, Ethan chopping vegetables for dinner while I leaned against the counter, scrolling through my phone. "We need to talk about money," I said, my tone firmer than I intended. Ethan's knife came to a halt mid-chop. "What about it?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "I'm always broke by the end of the month while you have money stashed away. I think we should combine our finances," I declared, crossing my arms. The look on his face was priceless, as if I'd suggested selling the apartment and moving to Mars. "You can't be serious," he sputtered. But I was. Dead serious. "Why not?" I pressed. "We're partners, right? Shouldn't we be sharing everything?" Ethan's laugh was sharp and disbelieving. "Emma, I pay for everything here. The mortgage, the bills, the groceries. You're living here for free." His words stung, but I stood my ground. "So what? You make way more than me. It's only fair that we level the playing field." The argument that followed was ugly. Words flew like daggers, and old resentments bubbled to the surface. Ethan kept reiterating how much he already provides and how I contribute nothing to our living expenses, as if my presence and companionship weren't contributions enough. "Do you have any idea how entitled you sound right now?" Ethan's voice rose, his face flushed with anger. But all I could think about was the lifestyle I could have if we shared his income, the trips we could take, the clothes I could buy, the life I could live. Why should he get to enjoy all that money alone? "It's not entitlement," I shot back. "It's about equality in our relationship." Ethan's laughter was cold. "Equality? You want to talk about equality when you're not paying a dime towards our life together?" I felt my temper flare. How dare he make me feel small just because he earns more? "You're the one who offered to cover the expenses," I reminded him sharply. "Yeah, the household expenses," he retorted. "Not bankroll your entire life." The fight dragged on, neither of us willing to back down. In the end, we went to bed angry, the issue unresolved. But I'm not letting this go. I've had a taste of the good life, and I'm not about to give it up. Ethan needs to understand that being a couple means sharing everything, including his fat paycheck. He'll come around. He has to, because I'm not settling for anything less than what I deserve. And what I deserve is an equal share of everything he has. Let's check Ethan's side. I couldn't sleep last night. Emma's words kept echoing in my head, each repetition stoking the embers of my anger. How could she demand we combine our finances? The audacity of it all left me reeling. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my initial fury began to cool, replaced by a nagging urge to understand. What was driving Emma to make such an outrageous request? I found myself picking apart our relationship, examining every interaction, every offhand comment about money. It hit me then. Could this be about jealousy? I thought back to the times Emma would eye my wallet, or the way her gaze would linger on the designer stores we'd pass in the mall. Despite covering all our living expenses, I still had more disposable income than her. Was that the root of all this? I rolled onto my side, watching Emma's sleeping form. Her closet was bursting with new clothes, shoes piled high in the corner. Just last week, she come home with another haul of makeup and skincare products, excitedly showing me each item. At the time, I'd smiled, happy to see her happy. Now, I couldn't help but wonder how much it had all cost. It dawned on me that despite her rent-free living, Emma always seemed to be broke by month's end. Where was her money going? I mentally tallied up her expenses, the weekly spa treatments, the constant stream of packages from online shopping, the nights out with friends. It all added up to a picture of poor financial management. The realization left a sour taste in my mouth. If we combined our finances as she wanted, would my hard-earned money be frittered away on more impulse purchases and luxury items? The thought made my stomach churn. I've always believed in working hard for what you want and being responsible with money. My parents instilled those values in me from a young age. But Emma seemed to have a different outlook. She appeared to view money as something to be spent freely, without thought for the future. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the curtains, I found myself facing a harsh truth. This wasn't just about combining finances. This was about a fundamental difference in how we view money, responsibility, and partnership. I thought about all those stories you hear about relationships falling apart due to financial issues. Was that us now? Had we turned into just another statistic, a cautionary tale about the risks of unequal financial contributions in a relationship? The weight of it all pressed down on me. I love Emma, but I can't ignore the red flags anymore. Her demand isn't just unreasonable. It's a potential threat to everything I've worked for. If I gave in, would it ever be enough? Or would I always be expected to fund an increasingly expensive lifestyle while she contributes nothing? As I made my way through the workday, my mind kept drifting back to last night's argument. The numbers on my screen blurred as I found myself questioning not just our financial situation, but our entire relationship. I thought about the day I'd asked Emma to move in. I had been so excited, so sure it was the right move. Now I wondered if I had been naive. Had I mistaken infatuation for compatibility? The more I mulled it over, the more I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about values, goals, and maturity. During my lunch break, I walked to the park across from my office. As I watched couples stroll by hand in hand, I tried to remember the last time Emma and I had done something like that. When was the last time we'd had a conversation about our future that didn't revolve around her wants? As I sat there, I felt a growing unease. Was I truly happy? The question caught me off guard, but once asked, it demanded an answer. I thought about my life goals, building a stable future, maybe starting a family someday. Then I considered Emma's focus on immediate gratification and her lack of concern for tomorrow. The gap between us suddenly seemed vast. While I'd been growing, taking on responsibilities, and planning for the future, Emma seemed stuck in a post-college mindset, living for the moment and expecting others to foot the bill. I recalled my friends who'd warned me about moving too fast. Make sure you're on the same page financially, they'd said. I had brushed it off, thinking love would be enough. Now their words echoed in my head, a warning I'd failed to heed. Sitting back at my desk, I realized I had some serious thinking to do. This wasn't just about whether to combine our finances. It was about whether we even had a future together. The thought was daunting, but I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. I've learned a hard lesson through all this. While generosity is admirable, without clear boundaries and shared values, it can quickly turn into exploitation. As I left the office, I silently vowed never to let myself be taken advantage of again, no matter how much I care for someone. It was time to put myself first and ensure that any relationship I pursue is genuinely equal and mutually beneficial. Now let's check Emma's side. I can't believe this is happening. When Ethan sat me down for a talk, I thought maybe he'd finally come around about combining our finances. Instead, he hit me with a breakup speech, something about misaligned values and unequal effort. I barely heard half of it over the sound of my world crashing down. Make your own arrangements and move out, he said, his voice steady but his eyes avoiding mine. This isn't working anymore. I couldn't accept it. I wouldn't. You can't do this to me, I said, tears welling up. Where am I supposed to go? What about all our plans? But Ethan just shook his head, unmoved. I'm sorry, Emma. You're a spender, whereas I'm a saver. Our goals aren't aligned and will never be. I tried everything. Reminded him of all our good times, promised I'd change, even threatened to tell everyone he was kicking me out on the street. Nothing worked. Ethan's face remained impassive, like I was talking to a stranger. Realizing he wouldn't budge, I called my friend Lily. She agreed to let me crash at her place. As I packed my things, the reality of the situation hit me hard. This was really happening. I spent that first night at Lily's crying and raging. How could Ethan do this to me? Didn't the last 3 years mean anything? I poured my heart out on social media, letting everyone know how cruelly I'd been treated. I texted Ethan constantly, begging, accusing, apologizing. When he didn't respond, I even got our mutual friends to reach out. But he blocked us all, cutting me off completely. Days passed in a blur of anger and despair. Then, unexpectedly, my dad called. He sounded disappointed. He said he'd spoken to Ethan and gotten the full story. Honey, he said, his voice gentle but firm, I think you need to let this go. Ethan's made his decision. I couldn't believe it. My own father was taking Ethan's side. But Dad, I protested. He just threw me out. How can you? He cut you off, Emma. Listen to me. You had a good thing with Ethan. A rent-free place to live, no bills to worry about, and you pushed for more. It's time to learn from this and grow up a little. His words stung, but deep down, I knew he was right. I had taken Ethan for granted, assuming he would always be there no matter what. Now, sitting in Lily's spare room, surrounded by hastily packed boxes, I realized just how much I'd lost. The comforts of our shared life, the plans we had made, all seemed to slip through my fingers like sand. The reality of my situation was sobering. I had to confront my mistakes and figure out how to move forward. It was time to reflect on what I truly wanted and how to make it happen without relying on anyone else. Now let's check Ethan's side of the story. It's been a month since Emma moved out, and I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. The apartment feels quieter, emptier in some ways, but there's a sense of peace I hadn't realized I was missing. The first few days were tough. I'd catch myself turning to share a thought or a joke, only to remember she wasn't there. But as the days passed, I noticed a change. My shoulders felt lighter, and my mind clearer. I've started picking up old hobbies I had let slide. Last weekend, I dusted off my camera and spent the day photographing the city. It felt good to create something just for me, without worrying about anyone else's expectations. Sure, there are moments when I miss the companionship, like family dinners with Emma's parents or our Sunday morning coffee ritual. But then I remember the constant tension and the feeling of being taken for granted, and I know I made the right choice. Looking back, I can see how much I compromised myself in that relationship. I let my own needs and values take a back seat, all in the name of keeping the peace. Never again. This experience has taught me the true value of self-respect. It's not always easy to stand up for yourself, especially when it means letting go of someone you care about. But in the end, it's the only way to live a life that's truly your own. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.